Hey, welcome back, folks. It's Wednesday, July 17th, 2024. Now, born on this date in 1914, character actress Lucille Benson of Scottsboro. She was in several things, including Bosom Buddies. You probably remember her as Roscoe P. Coltrane's mom in one episode. Now, in 1952, sci fi author Robert R. McCammon of Birmingham. Today, let's talk grocery chains, the newest lawmaker, and a soon to be veterans home. And then music and entertainment writer Matt Wake's going to join us to talk Alabama singers. My name's Ike Morgan, and we're down in Alabama. When Aldi announced the acquisition of a pair of grocery store chains from Southeastern Grocers last year, it said it would be converting some of Alabama's Winn-Dixie locations into Aldi's. That acquisition was finalized in March. AL.com's William Thornton reports that 3 stores are planned to make the change. Winn-Dixie's on McFarland Boulevard in Northport, Morgan Road in Bessemer, and Centerpoint Road in Pinson will become Aldi's. The chain said workers at those stores will have the first opportunity to apply at the rebranded Aldi's or transfer to another Winn-Dixie. The other brand acquired by Aldi in last year's deal was Harvey's Supermarkets, which you can find in Georgia and parts of Florida. Yesterday, a primary runoff was held to determine the replacement for longtime state representative John Rogers of Birmingham, who earlier this year resigned his seat and pled guilty to federal corruption charges. Now the seat will remain with the Democratic Party after the only Republican candidate dropped out of the race. In the Democratic primary, the city's director of community development, Kelvin Datcher, defeated Pastor Frank Woodson by carrying 55% of the vote. Now, if you didn't vote and stayed home instead, you were not alone. Well, you might have been alone at home, but you weren't alone in not voting. Only 1,506 voters turned out. The district, which includes parts of Birmingham, Fairfield, and Homewood, has 34,245 registered voters. Now, that 10-point difference between the candidates amounted to just 156 votes. Alabama currently has 4 veterans homes in Alexander City, Huntsville, Bay Minette, and Pell City. Now, all 4 have waiting lists for residents, spanning from 4 months to more than a year. The facilities provide a nursing home level of care for veterans. A 5th veterans home is scheduled to open September 13th in Enterprise, reports AL.com's Mike Kaysen. Now, it'll be the Benny G. Adkins State Veterans Home near Fort Novosel, and it'll have an estimated 174 residents and 200 employees. The project has been 6 years in the making and has cost around $115 million in state and federal funds. The Benny G. Adkins State Veterans Home will be accepting residency applications after it names a director. Benny Adkins, who it's named after, was an Army veteran and was deployed to Vietnam 3 times during the war. One of those times made him a recipient of the Medal of Honor. After retiring from the Army, he earned degrees from Troy University and settled in Opelika, where he passed away in 2020 with complications from COVID-19. His Medal of Honor proclamation said that during 48 hours of combat in 1966, he used mortars, firearms, and hand grenades to kill between 135 and 175 enemy soldiers and was wounded 18 times himself. His body is buried at Arlington National Cemetery. Hey, let's go to a quick commercial break so we can feed the band. When we come back, we'll have music writer Matt Wake on. He recently published a ranking of Alabama's all-time best singers, and we'll see who topped that list. Y'all stay with us. Hey, everybody. Thanks for staying with us. We have a treat today. Entertainment reporter Matt Wake is with us. He recently wrote a piece where he ranked some of the all-time, I think it was top 20 singers in Alabama history. What a history, first of all. But Matt, welcome to the show. It's good to see you.
Good to see you, Ike, and thanks for having me, man.
And remind me, because we're like all over the place. People do their jobs from just about anywhere in the state. I know
Yeah,
you have written for the Huntsville Times. Where are you located exactly?
I'm here in Five Points neighborhood in Huntsville, Alabama.
All right. Well, there's always plenty going on. Y'all are growing like crazy, and you've covered the music scene for a number of years. What have you been into lately? What have you been listening to, or any big shows this summer that you've hit, or anything like that?
Yeah, so big shows coming up this summer. The Slash, the guitar player from Guns N' Roses, is bringing his blues festival, the Serpent Festival, to Orion in August. Been into that. In 1 week, I saw Judas Priest, Greta Van Fleet, and Neil Young here in Huntsville, which, a couple years ago, I would have had to driven to Nashville for all of those. All awesome. What have I been listening to lately? Some old stuff. Actually, the band that ACDC singer Brian Johnson was in before he was in ACDC, called Geordie. It's kind of hard rock with a glam rock sort of thing to it, and it's fun.
That's what I have loved about reading your stuff. I mean, and people who listen to the show, it's not, I don't think I've left too much of a mystery that I'm a country boy, but I also grew up in the 80s, and
Yeah.
I like some of the classic stuff from the 70s through the hair metal, and into grunge. That's sort of my rock and roll era, and I haven't gone outside of that much. So it's been.
Lots to dig into in there.
Oh, there's plenty of it. There's plenty of it. You know, your 4 years of high school always feel like they took up half of your life. Those are the. Well, let's talk about this list that you made. I mean, first of all, how did you approach such a thing? The best singers. I mean, how much did you weigh technical vocals and range versus your stylists and just people you like to hear their voice?
Well, that's the whole thing of it, is weighing that. I would think you need to have some of all that. I think there's some. This is going outside of Alabama, but while I enjoy the music of like a Bob Dylan or Tom Waits or someone like that, they are not. They have a ton of vibe, but they are not technically good in any shape or form. Similarly. Possibly the greatest songwriter this state has ever produced, Jimmy Buffett. Not a great singer in any shape or form. Awesome businessman, awesome songwriter. But you don't want to undervalue connecting with people. Someone like Wilson Pickett, who had huge hits. Someone like Lionel Richie, who's had huge hits. Randy Allen with Alabama. You don't want to overvalue or undervalue classic or new. So, Brittany Howard, has she been around as long as, some of the classic sort of Muscle Shoals singers and stuff like that? No. But, that talent, when you put it on be it, the talent, she's won Grammy. She's huge, a very much a star of her age. It's balancing all those things. And there are technical singers who don't make the song better. Like, they sing it well, but they don't make it come catch fire in your soul. You
That's
know,
right. That's
so
right.
it's finding the balance there.
One thing I've noticed, and I felt like some of those people who aren't technically great vocalists, but they're songwriters, their vocal melodies
Mhm.
seem out of this world. And I wonder if they do, to make the song interesting, they almost have to. And I'm thinking about Dylan and Christopherson, Kurt Cobain. I mean, these great vocal melodies for singers that just kind of. get there. Does that make any sense? Am I am I in the ballpark?
It does, and there's also the thing of I've said this before. I've even written a story on this. Like you can sing anything. You can sing the Barney the Dinosaur song, "I love you, you love me," in the
That's great.
Bob Dylan kind of vowel stretching. All of a sudden, it's deep. You know, like the guy has vibe, and it has and he's a hell of a songwriter and an artist. Um, but yeah, so. Kurt Cobain, I would say, actually could really belt it out really good, but he also could sing really good uh, melodies, like you pointed out. And but yeah, so it's interesting how people can different singers can reach people and stick with them. And I mean, if the songs, I mean, there are very very good singers who, until they had good songs, really 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 good songs, they were not super famous, like David Coverdale for Whitesnake. He was actually a singer in Deep Purple, latter day Deep Purple in the 70s, and before starting Whitesnake. And Whitesnake, in the early days, they had a couple of good songs, but nothing like they had in the 80s when the A&R guy, John Kalodner, put them together, a new lineup, and they blew up huge, man. So good singer plus a good song plus a good performance.
Plus Tawny Katane in your videos.
Yeah, yeah, she was something, man.
Good times. Good times. Let's get to this list a little bit and a couple of things that
Hmm.
might have stood out to me and anything you want to
Yeah.
talk about it. First of all, people are going to be surprised to see Clarence Carter as high as he was. He almost like I wasn't even looking for him in there. And of course he was there. But you have a whole generation of people who heard Strokin' on repeat in
Yeah,
'94 and think that he's this novelty singer. So I think we're going to learn some things from this list about Alabama singers.
man, I love that. That's if you don't learn get a turn on or two from a music list, that's not usually a very good list. Um, yeah, Strogan. I came of age during that time, and yeah, yuck, 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 naughty, 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 wink, wink, wink. But like the stuff he did in the late '60s and the early '70s, Muscle Shoals, man, it's powerful, man, and talented singer. So yeah,
Yeah. Got that out of Muscle Shoals when they were cranking out those R&B and rock and roll hits. For my money, I'll mention someone else
yeah,
who's on the list. If you picked one line, one moment in a song, just
mm.
three chords, the moment that Percy Sledge belts out "When a Man Loves a Woman," I'm not sure he has a peer anywhere on that list.
Oh, I mean, if that doesn't make your spine tingle, you should maybe check pulse or other certain vital signs. But yeah, and that was pretty much his only thing. If he had five more, tracks like that connected like that, it'd be hard to keep him out of much higher. But even just, and I'm not saying he didn't have other material that wasn't worthy, but what a performance for the ages. And it's like Candy Staten, who I think I said in the piece was Rick Hall's favorite singer. And think of all the mother flipping great singers Rick Hall worked with and recorded. I mean, this girl, she didn't quite have the iconic hits. She had hits and made some really good sound records. And even like as far as like, last decade made a good record. And, but like, holy smokes, that girl sings and it takes you somewhere, and she has the range, the technique, um, knows how to sing in a studio, so uh, yeah, incredible. Like I started doing a best guitarist list from Alabama.
Uh-huh.
That was going to be the next one I did because I did best bands a few weeks ago. But the guitarist list, it was there's some really good players on there, but it was not naturally diverse or wide ranging, and it's when music lists are made artificially diverse,
Hmm.
it makes them suck because people roll their eyes and you know
Yeah.
but also it's singing is something most forms of music have, and it's so you don't have to buy a guitar or buy drums or buy a saxophone or whatever to sing, learn how to sing. So and then I started researching singers in Alabama, and I was like, I remember there being a lot of good singers from here, but this is like, you know, the cliche on anything. The best thing Alabama produced is, you trot out college football and barbecue.
Right.
That's like the biggest cliche for an Alabama culture writer to use. But like, um, I mean, singers, Saban ain't got nothing on Alabama singers.
Yeah, Rick Hall saying that about Candy Staten. That's so huge because Aretha spent time in Muscle Shoals, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, there's a story behind that. That wasn't exactly didn't end real
Right.
great. So,
Right. When you went and listened to some tracks and kind of weighed this artist against this artist or whatever, did you did you learn anything yourself? Did you is someone on this list that just kind of you'd never expected to be until you really started looking into the subject?
oh, that's a good question, Ike Morgan. You start as appreciating maybe the nuances of someone like, okay, Martha and the Vandellas had some huge, timeless, forever will be listened to girl group Motown songs. But when you actually pin it down and start listening to how good her vocal is, it's so accurate, but still has heart.
Yeah.
And it makes it better than the song. I mean, Van Halen has done Dancing in the Street. Um, uh, loads of other people have, and they couldn't do it better than Martha and the Vandellas
I
did.
was I
And
was so excuse me. I was so impressed when you wrote that Van Halen didn't match Martha and the
because
Vandellas.
I love Van Halen so
That's
much.
right. That means something coming from Matt Wake. Let me tell you.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about Hank Williams for a second because I always like to talk about Hank Williams. There was something
Oh
really
yeah.
interesting you said, and I've never thought of this, but while genres, rock and roll and R&B particular in my mind, they're always working to the next peak. They're push. I mean, in all music, even country pushes the edges, but rock and R&B, they have that next greatest. And in country music, right from the start, almost, within 20 years, here's Hank Williams, and everybody else is just chasing that for the rest of time. That
No one's gotten close. No one's gotten close.
well, I was thinking about it, and I think you're absolutely right because there's not another Hank Williams, but there have been artists that are so talented, and you could argue
Oh yeah.
in their time they could be, if you rank, it's so hard to rank artists against each other, but that they may have been able to bring more to the table. But country, from its infancy, it was about looking back to your roots and about being old. It's sort of the old mythical South thing, which isn't completely mythical, but where people think about their grandparents. That's what country music was, and Hank Williams just provided that, and I'm not sure it would have gone anywhere else if it weren't for Hank.
Can't say it any better than you, man. I mean, real deal, relatable. He wrote the songs, he sung them, he put you inside of them. I mean, those songs still hit you today. I mean, we're in the TikTok and Snapchat era, and they still, you know, uh, they hit you, man.
What
Hank
counts as
Williams, never been.
what counts as the first? This is also another tangent. I got you here, so I'm going to ask you these music questions that have been bugging me for
Cool.
years. Um, the first rock and roll hit song. I know that it's an evolution. You can't, comes from the blues and from hillbilly and everything else. I think "Move It
Yeah.
On Over" is in that conversation, but, is this something you've pondered? Do you have an opinion on that?
I've never heard that take. You could argue that it's certainly got the spirit and some playfulness of rock and roll, kind of jauntiness like that. That's a real interesting, and that's why talking about music, everybody eats, but almost everybody loves music.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that's a good take.
Okay, yeah, well, thanks for saying that. It predated Rocket 88 and, Rock Around the Clock, of course, obviously, folks were doing rock and roll before then. They just didn't necessarily have a label slapped on it. But,
Yeah.
now I know we don't wanna give away everything. This piece is on the internet, at al.com. Are you
Who
willing
put it
to
on the internet?
I'm sorry?
What? It's on the internet? Someone put it on the internet? It's supposed to just be on my uh,
It's
face blog or whatever.
would you like to go ahead and, since it's published, reveal your number 1 here? I wasn't gonna do it for you.
It is um Wilson Pickett, the Wicked Pickett, electrifying, hits the notes, um, just transcendent, man. You gave that guy a song. There's okay. Um, there's a couple of singers on it. I'll go ahead and say it. Lionel Richie, great star, charming, um, accurate singer. But if you handed him Mustang Sally, do you think it would make you light up like when Wilson Pickett sings it?
Not like
No.
Wilson Pickett.
Yeah. No, he's there's a difference between being an accurate singer and being able to burn the effing house down with a song and make it something it better than was handed to you or that you wrote on a piece of paper. But I like Lionel Richie a lot, and I mean, what a star, and a likable star.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, you know, he knows who he is. He's doesn't take himself too seriously. I saw him slay at Bonnaroo several years ago. Fun show, still got it. Um, and he definitely should be in the top 20 greatest singers and I actually like his solo stuff better than his Commodore stuff, which is usually not my modus operandi.
I just like his voice. Easy Like Sunday Morning is his, you know, he might not stay with Wilson Pickett on Mustang Sally, but I don't hear anyone else sing Easy Like Sunday Morning.
Well said. Perfect. He's suave.
Yeah.
That's the thing about Lionel Richie is suave. Wilson Pickett is a soul music R&B animal. All right.
hmm And effortless. It seems effortless. I mean, like he stepped into the studio in the morning and just said, "What are we doing?" and just ripped through it, and it is art.
Yeah, it takes a lot of hours and work and a lot of talent to get where it flows like that. On the guitar, Stevie Ray Vaughan was like that. It just
Oh,
flowed. He wasn't ever reaching, but that's because he spent so much time with his guitar,
what a
working
great
on it.
what a great comparison. Yeah, listen, you're right. Listening to the vocals from Wilson Pickett is a lot like when Stevie Ray would just that hand would come down and you'd hear that an ocean of notes. Like, where is all that coming from?
Yeah, it's on fire, man. Plays like he's on fire, sings like he's on fire. There's a difference. Some people sing like they're on fire. Some people are suave or get the song across but singing like you're on fire is it but still hitting the notes.
Right. Right, absolutely. Matt Wake, this was awesome. This is unquestionably the coolest Down in Alabama podcast episode because we don't get to always sit around and talk about rock and roll for a while. But I'm so glad you joined us. Is there anything I'm forgetting? Is there any?
Um, well, I will add a couple of things on this best singers thing. A couple of that were the hardest to leave off. Tommy Shaw from Styx was hard to leave
Oh
off.
yeah,
You know, he was way real. You know, if it's 25, he's in there for me. And hell of a career with Damn Yankees and Styx and some solo stuff too. Montgomery product. And one I wish I would have thought of, and I don't know if she makes the top 20, but Tony Tennille from Montgomery went to Auburn. Huge success with Captain and Tennille, but also sung background vocals on The Wall and also on Elton John's Caribou album. So probably not in the 20, but and another thing you got to weigh: there's cool and there's good, and some people are both, quote unquote cool,
uh-huh.
and some people are good, and some people are both. But I don't know. You can't. I don't know. Yeah. So that those would be two people that I think even more great singers from Alabama.
Oh, great! I love that you mentioned Tommy Shaw. I didn't think about him, but yes, High Enough with the Nuge.
Love that song.
Oh,
Love that song.
I chased that down about 6 months ago because I hadn't heard it in so long. Oh, forever, man. That's hairband as good as it got for that era.
Yeah, and they were making hits out of it in the early '90s. That hard rock kind of thing. And Coming of Age is another great one that Tommy did with Damn Yankees and the Nuge and Jack Blades from Night Ranger. But yeah, so Alabama rock and roll, Alabama singers, some good
Yeah.
soulful stuff, and the variety of rock, country, pop. Obscure people like Eddie Hinton, who the music heads love.
Mhm. Yeah.
It was a really fun list to make. It was a hard list to make. Places went up and down a few times.
Oh, that'll happen. Tammy Wynette's on the list. I'll go ahead and spoil that too to get another country name out there.
Yeah, God, what she could belt it out, man. It had presence and no Pro Tools back in those days, baby.
Yeah. That's it. That says it all.
She sang that. She sang it.
That's right. Matt, I appreciate it so much. Thanks for coming on. You'll come back again when we got something else to talk about.
Sounds great, Ike. Thanks for having me, man.
Sure. Thanks everybody for listening to us. We will be back here again tomorrow. Until then, y'all come by and see what we're doing on the internet at al.com.